And we are live, so it worked. Welcome everyone to Think Young Speaking Up for our Digital Future series. This is a series of webinars and events we started in 2019 and it goes on, and we talk always about digital issues. In the last 3 years, we never had any technical problem. We had today, and that's why we are 12 minutes late on the agenda. But we will try to speed up and make sure we are back on track. So thank you everyone for joining us. We try today to look at how internet and platform that we are used to work on and every day we used to promote our activities, how different organization, whether they are more institutional or whether they are more grassroots, use these platforms to promote their activity, their campaign. We are all familiar with campaign like Fridays for Future, like Black Lives Matters. Everything was very grassroots. Everything started from the initiative of few people, and then it became global. And that thanks to digital platform that allows today to do this. Today we're very fortunate because we have a very heterogeneous group of experts. A warm welcome to Violeta Meotto, who is a community and social media manager for the EU Sustainable Energy Week 2021, so a European Commission initiative. To Guadalupe de las Casas Escardó, who's a media and communication manager at the Brussels office of the One campaign. To Edu Arechaga, who's board member of the European Youth Forum and also head of international affairs of the National Youth Council for Spain. Marcin Kuzmierczyk, who's a journalist and author of an independent online program on international politics. And last but not least, to Sebastian Rodriguez, who's a European campaign strategist and founder of the Campaign Playbook, which is a growing platform in Brussels. I'll go straight to the first question so that we try to get back the 12 minutes we lost at the very beginning. We start from Violeta, who will be with us for the next half an hour. And you work for the Sustainable Energy Week, which is the biggest annual event dedicated to renewable energy and efficient energy use in Europe. And it's a very large event organized by an extremely large player like the European Commission. So very traditional, fairly bureaucratic sometimes. In 2020, it was the first time that the initiative went completely digital, for a reason that I think we're all familiar with. And can you talk us a bit about this transition to, let's say, a fully offline event to a fully online event, especially in an organization as important and as large as the European Commission, and how online platforms, how all this helped in your job in maybe reaching even more people than what you usually do when you organize it in Brussels? Violeta, please.
Thanks, Andrea, for the question, and apologies for this. I will have to leave before the Q&A, but I will try to stay as long as I can. Indeed, this is the 16th edition, so it's, as you said, a traditional event already for the Commission. So for the the previous 14 years, not counting last year, this was physical. Now, 2020, it had to go remote from one day to the other, as we all know. Traditionally, USEF was always held in June. It's happening now in 10 days, which means that this year we're holding it in October. And the challenge last year was obviously from, let's say, late March, when it was obvious that some things would not be physical anymore, from mid-March, end of March, to actually determine a whole new strategy and a whole new event that was taking place in June at that time. So it was a big challenge for the organizing team indeed. And this is why this year we have directly planned the event as a fully remote event for participants. But we do call it hybrid in a way that we still have some speakers on site. We do have studios where speakers can join us, but some speakers are remote and all the participants are online. And we are hoping for next year that we will have a real hybrid, which will mean a proper event in a place where both participants and speakers can come, but also to make this event replicable and to have it also in the web, to have it also streamed, which is the idea, to reach more and more people as well. So mixing the both communities, the online and the ones that will be shaking our hands. So from the com side, let's say what is interesting for us here is how we approach this from a completely different strategy, thinking that now also after a year and a half of online events, they are now the norm. They're not a novelty. They're not, oh, we're not so excited to have an online event that lasts 5 days and has 40 policy sessions like Youssef does. So what did we do? We thought, okay, we are going to focus a lot of communication around the networking opportunities, because this was something that was a very important component in the live event. So we have a very strong platform that has an AI matchmaking tool, which means that when you fill your profile as a member of the community of Youssef, you are actually suggested to make contact with speakers or with other participants that are within your interests, and actually interact. And the platform allows for this, to have one-on-one meetings, to chat with people, to create groups and communities to generate these spaces. And this was what we're communicating, for example. Then another point is also very interesting, is trying to really build, because we did have a very strong community from coming to the events and again shaking our hands, saying hi, we all knew each other's faces, but building the online community was also very hard. And for this we have resorted to what we call digital ambassadors. For example, they are energy professionals and entrepreneurs, for example, that are very active in the digital world, and we have partnered with them. So partnerships are also very important. And then another component to the last point would be, we try to really put ourselves with the team in the user experience, and say, how can we make it easier to access Youssef, to join, to be engaged. And for example, one thing that is a brand new, let's say, is that we don't have to register to log in to create an account. For example, there's awards in the ceremony, and there's a public vote. So the public vote is just 2 clicks. We enter in the platform, we see who are up for vote, we choose the category, and in 1 click we're voting for this amazing candidates. And then, for example, another thing we did is really splitting the program throughout not only the week, but actually this week and the week before, we've been having an extended program. Sorry, this week and the week after, we're having an extended program just before Youssef, just the week of Youssef. So this means people can really choose, within a longer time frame, where they can go and how they want to plan their agenda, and still be part of the conversations without being overwhelmed, which is something that in the digital realm now is very common. So I would say these were the main things we did.
Thank you. Quite impressive, and we'll dig a bit later, because you mentioned entrepreneurs, and you mentioned several stakeholders. I think what we want to try to achieve today is really to see how people use platform to then reach out and maybe understand a bit about how you guys reach out on them. But speaking about reach out, I think obviously journalists are the master of this. And Marcin, as a journalist, you do see that people interact with the digital world like never before. And how do you use social media or the different platforms online for your work? How in your field, the most useful aspect of all this new platform that are coming, how does it make your daily life and your daily work easier, or eventually more complicated, even if I think it's probably easier to reach?
Thank you so much. Thank you for giving me opportunity to take part in this event. So yeah, the distribution part is of course the obvious one. Without the social media platforms, it would be impossible for me to reach people on this level. If I were to put my program on some websites, probably nobody could find it. So this is kind of obvious way to use social media to distribute your content. But to be honest, there is something more important for me when it comes to social media and my work, because it helps me with research. If in my work I use huge amounts of official statements, of press releases, of think tank analysis, And it would be much, much harder for me to go to each website each time I need some document, rather than using social media, especially that, going to websites of governments and EU institutions. It's not always the pleasant experience, because it's not always as user friendly as the platforms that we all know. So it just is much easier to get a proper research. And of course, social media is a tool, and you need to use it correctly, because in the social media, there's also huge amounts of disinformation. But when you have official account of this government, of European Commission, whatever, and it sends you to the official site of this government, European Commission, State Department, you can be pretty sure that this is the official statement of this institution. And I think that the huge milestone when it comes to social media and politics was 2016 election of Donald Trump. Well, you can think many different things about this controversial politician, but the way he transformed social media usage for politics is it's hard to deny that fact that now everybody needs to be active on social media in order not to seize this huge battleground to the political opponents. Everybody needs to be active. So it's not. It used to be the method to release statement from time to time. No, now it's the day-to-day activities of your foreign minister, of your prime minister, of the head of the European Commission, of what's going on in European Parliament. It's much easier to get information and then analyze it when you have social media, when you use social media in order to search for credible information. And in my work, that's definitely the most important part of social media in my workflow.
Thank you, Marcin. And you touched upon policymakers, which gives me a nice link to the question I wanted to ask to Sebastian. You do help pro-EU organization to communicate about the European project, if I can sum up in 2 words your job description. And how do you use? And we'll talk a bit about social media in the sort of now, but let's face it, there are not just social media, there are many online platforms out there and digital tools. There are many digital tools that people use to share and communicate. And how do you use these tools to communicate about the European project and to help experts to communicate about the European project? And based on your experience, do you think, online platforms have played or are currently playing a key role in mobilizing youth? As we said before, Fridays for Future, Black Lives Matter, there are many youth movement grassroots has started thanks to online platform. Can you tell us a bit about your experience in this?
Of course, and thank you. Firstly, thank you for having me here. I'm very excited to be invited to a think tank for the youth that lobby for the young people, which makes me feel young, as we all are in spirit as well. You were right. So my purpose is to help pro-European organizations convey their message. And there are many ways. The answer to your question, I want to avoid the "it depends" on your goals, etc. Let's scrap that and let's go straight to the point. Or at least what I advocate for are a strategy that contains the elements that you have already mentioned. So I think Black Lives Matter have been mentioned, Fridays for Future, but also our colleague from the Commission is talking about communities. And I think it's quite, it's very refreshing to see or to hear that word from the institutions, because that's what I am firmly advocating for. I think, especially for the young, that the best way to reach them and to communicate the European project is to build communities of people. And with a community, well, essentially, it will be in this case, a digital community. It's a group of people that are coming together to achieve a certain purpose. And what they have in common, it's values. And it doesn't have to be a community of ideological community. It can be in the example that we are discussing, a community to defend, to promote the European project. And one of the good things that this approach has, and that has been followed by the European institutions. I'm thinking about the European elections campaign 2019, and many things that I see here in Brussels. As things that are changing, and that it's very, like I say, it's very refreshing to see this. Is that the top-down approach in communication, it doesn't cut it. I mean, it may have worked in the past for our fathers and grandparents when there were mass media communications, and you could be sure that if you drop a message on on TV, most people will watch that message in the same, in an exactly same setting. Now, as we all know, not going to repeat this. We're in a completely different scenario. So, what is in a fragmented scenario with fragmented platforms? What is the best way to make sure we reach people in the most appropriate way? By building communities around whichever our cause is. Um, I think to build those communities, of course, you need to. So you cannot apply new power structures like digital organizing or community organizing or grassroots, as you said, without bringing new power values. And sometimes what I have come across is organizations that say, look, we want to do this community organizing, grassroots, whatever, but we are not bringing the values. And especially for the young people, that really, I mean, there is a huge clash, because what people, especially young people, expect from this type of initiatives is that they feel empowered, that they feel that they are given agency, that they are given a chance to express whatever the issue is in his or in their own terms. And for that, digital is key, because digital, what it will help you is to scale and to be able to do that at a massive scale. And I'm very happy to continue or to build on that a little bit later if we are short of time. But there are multiple examples already of successful projects and initiatives, and I think this is exactly the way forward.
Thank you very much, Sebastian, and also for being conscious of the time. And conscious of the time, we know, Violeta, you have to leave us in about 10 minutes. So I'll skip a couple of questions, come to you on what Sebastian was starting to show, and then he kind of said, guys, I'll tell you more later, and maybe now your time to tell us more later. There are several tips and tricks that I'm sure you use to engage with people online. We are very familiar, I think, by now, all of us, with organic growth compared to paid advertising, etc., etc. How do you promote? Which are your tips and tricks when you promote the EU Sustainable Energy Week? How do you do your work on a daily basis using this platform? What can you tell us about this? Do you guys have a budget when you do this kind of activities? So you have some paid advertising as well, or how does it work?
I have to say it is very fun. We do have a budget for paid advertising, but it's compared to other events that have the same magnitude of USEF, it's actually quite small. So we are only using it for main milestones, meaning registrations or things that we know we need numbers. But I think we're also working a lot on really on the organic side. I think a key to this, and maybe this is why I wanted to, when Sebastian was talking, I was already thinking so many things. I think a key to this is really speaking the audience's language, and the institutions sometimes are a bit difficult in this sense, and even sometimes our managers, when we come up with some proposal, it is still a bit sometimes difficult to pass something that is not, let's say, public sector language, or what we like to call EU jargon, or Also acronyms. There is something called death by PowerPoint, but I think there's also something called death by acronyms. When you see a post with so many acronyms, I'm also a bit shocked sometimes that even myself working in this, I sometimes do not know, because of course we cannot be experts on all the content. I mean, we have the people within the commission that are experts, that are researchers, that are the policymakers, that of course provide us the content. But indeed, as a social media manager, in the end, Youssef is about sustainable energy. It's about clean energy. It's about green energy. But the other terms, sometimes this is not something that is for, to put in a tweet. Let's put it like this. So it's interesting how to make this the topic itself attractive in few characters. And I think two things that I will just leave here for you guys also to discuss further, see if we're doing the job well. When I'm not here, you can criticize. Is one, the content for me has to be, as I was saying, accessible, but also it has to be simple. Simple doesn't mean that it is, simple is difficult. It doesn't mean that it is, condescending, or that it's for, a granny or a 5-year-old to read. We're not saying this. We're saying it has to be respectful also of the audience's time. If a post that I make is too long and people are wasting their time reading this to understand if they care or not about what I'm saying, then that's a problem. So I also think we have to be simple to respect, our audience and respect their time. Indeed, in the end, if someone is interested in the post, they will click, link, follow, read more, be more engaged, and that's one thing. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that particularly this year and the previous one, so we had 16 editions of Youssef, but just 2 editions of the youth event within Youssef. And this is something that's a big challenge for us. And I wanted to point it out because, of course, we are here in Think Young. We have partnered with Think Young for this, and also particularly for the event we're holding within Youssef. It's a communication hackathon, communicating energy challenges. So very special kind of hackathon. And we have partnered with AN, which is the European Youth Energy Network. So also knowing that we have this, coming back to the community point, right? Knowing that we have these partnerships is also important, because we know that these are the people that have, the databases, the network, and really the reach to the people that we want to reach with this kind of activities. Youssef traditionally does not have a massive youth followership, so we're building it this last 2 years especially. So it's very important for us, and this is key. So this is the 2 points I wanted to leave you with.
Can I
thank
ask
you so much. Yes.
Before, we still have 3-4 minutes.
Yes, of course.
If you can share, usually how many people attend, or for this one coming, how many would you expect, more or less?
I can tell you the numbers of last year. Last year it was 4,600 people connected. Yes, unique viewers. So quite a big event, and there was almost 20,000 votes for the awards last year.
Wow. And when you were, let's say, offline, how was the participation? Like, how many people show up actually to the event itself?
It was also a very big number, around the same, because actually, as I was saying, a lot of stakeholders really love to come to the fair. There were all, physical stands. We have that online now, but there were physical stands. There was a lot of movement around the week itself. So we had around that number, not every day, of course, but around 1,000 people per day of the week. Yeah.
And somehow the online allow you to keep the same number, maybe to reach actually new people, interact, that probably didn't even know about you guys.
When we're talking about hybrid, we're thinking that hopefully we can, next year we can have the people that love to come to Brussels to network for this event and love to be here listening to people on site, and then that we also can reach those that cannot come. And this is a barrier that thanks to digital world we can breach. There's good and there's bad, but this I think is one of the good sides.
I know, and I like when you were saying, you partner with different organizations and you use, the tools that the online world gives you to target also new potentially new participants. So you're able to actually find out who they are or who you want to target, and then make sure that through organization or the tools that the digital worlds allow you, then you're able to actually get in contact with them. Great. Then, a couple of minutes more before you leave us, Violetta. Thank you very much for. We know you're the week before the event.
You will disappear, but as I said to
You're
the audience, if there is a question directed to me, please feel free to share it with me after. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you again. 1 week before the event, we know it's very stressful, so time is extremely tight. We move to Edu now, and I mean we were talking about numbers with Violeta, and I think data clearly it's an important part, if not the most important part, when you do online promotion, online visibility, when you try to also empower young people, which is what you guys do. And we are curious to understand a bit about how two things. First, how do you guys use all the online platform at the European Youth Forum or for the Youth National Council? This, I think, how to see how you actually use them to connect with young people. And in particular, if you can maybe give us a practical example of the 25% project, which I know is something our team was very interested in, and how you use the online tools to, as we said, to connect with young people, but also to empower them eventually. So if you can give us some explanation on this, some of your ideas on all that.
Okay, thank you very much, Andrea, for the question, and also the other speakers. It was really interesting. First of all, to answer that, I think I want to quote, like Martin was saying, that social media is a tool. So I think we really have to bear in mind that. So when we are speaking about making social media like a tool to engage with young people, or for us young people to engage with each other, then it's really about having the same concerns we need to have when we are preparing even an online in-person event, like things like accessibility, like also Violetta mentioned. Like sometimes we forget that if it's online, it's supposed to be like really easy, like everything's kind of free, smooth, everyone can access it, and then that's not the reality of it most of the times. Then also in the European Youth Forum, when we are trying to prepare something or to organize something, we bear very much in mind not to only have let's say privileged young people in our events, which is sometimes the case when we are organizing things, even I don't know, in the mornings or in the time schedules where young people usually we are studying or working and so on. So that's something like we really need to take into account. And sometimes it's complicated when you have to organize an event also with, for example, policymakers or people that are like in their job schedule time. So then it's kind of complicated. But what we've seen is that mainly with online platforms and online events and social media, then sometimes we are able to skip this gap, no? To make, for example, rural youth able to access these kind of events, even if sometimes there's difficult for them to connect to the internet. But it's true that it makes them closer, or it makes us closer sometimes to institutions. So that's something really need to take into account. For example, with the 25% project you, Andrea, mentioned, we are trying also to make everything really accessible. Like our page platforms and so on are in, I think, in over 30 languages, to make sure everything's accessible, and also to take that into account and other things. Talking, for example, about the language, and Violetta was mentioning it about putting it simple. It's not just to use simple language or simple terms, or try to not to get this death by acronyms we were mentioning. It's also about taking into account that most people don't speak English, and that's the reality of it. Like if you go to any place in the world and you get in the street and try to speak English, not many would understand, and for sure won't be able to give a conference in English and to ask interesting questions and to read about European policy and so on. So we really need to take into account that most of the people, especially young people and everyone in general, that read our content in social media or get to our conferences and so on, most of them are not fluent in English or are not native English speakers. So that's why, for example, using subtitles is really essential. Using like simple terms is really essential. Even like sometimes to describe some things, that's something really cool. Even if sometimes we believe we are making things a little bit for kids, but it's not like this. It's like we really need to make sure everyone gets the message and everyone gets the point. And just to finish it, because I don't want to be too long, when we're talking about also empowerment, social media, it's a tool and online platforms are a tool, but not just like the objective itself. So in the youth forum and in our organizations and youth councils, we really want to make sure young people, we are empowered, because we do have the motivation, we do have the abilities, most of the time the skills, but we don't really know sometimes how to channel it, where do we put it. So in the 25%, apart from getting over 15,000 ideas from young people all over Europe for the future of the European Union, we also want to empower us to make sure that when we have an idea, what do we do? So then there in our social media, we have this kind of interactive dynamic handbook. So there you're like, okay, I do have an idea in a grassroots level. What can I do? So then you have some tips, some abilities, some trainings, some resources, and so on. And then you go up and up to be able to implement your idea and do it. And we've seen really good examples, as we've mentioned before, of grassroots level ideas that went international, even with just a little bit of a push.
Thank you very much, Edu. And that was definitely a good beginning. And I'm going to ask you more and more details after. We move towards Guadalupe, who works for the One campaign, which is definitely, among all the new, not very new, but I mean, I guess in the last years, you guys have really become very, very visible, and you doing, campaigning to fight against extreme poverty, to fight against preventable diseases. You have a special focus on Africa. So what Edu was talking about, also going to rural areas, I guess you guys are quite familiar with. But I think one interesting part from the One campaign is really how you have been able from basically zero to start growing so fast, and whether all the online platform, how did they help you to achieve this goal, how they're still helping you. We maybe also to find donors. We will publish a paper in the next coming weeks of Think Young, in which we have done some case studies on how different organizations, Save the Children, the Red Cross, use online tools, online platform, targeted advertisement, etc., to fundraise, and that clearly helped a lot. Can you tell us a bit about how you guys do this? What is the role? Maybe also the One Youth Ambassador around Europe, and tell us a bit about your movement and how it's constantly growing, which is, I think, it's an extremely interesting case study.
Yeah, thanks so much for the invitation to the panel and for the interesting question. I'm very, very engaged with all the other speakers, so I'm really happy to be part of this discussion. So first to tell you, actually in One, we are not searching for donors. We are always looking for supporters. And what do we say is like, we are not like looking for your money, we are looking for your voice. Because basically how we have managed to grow the movement is through like this wide network of supporters that join our campaigns, sign our petitions. And of course, it has been like more tricky, like as Violeta said, like going, because before we had like lots of like live and in-person actions. And since the pandemic started, we also had to turn everything offline. And we have also, since the pandemic, like shaped a bit the debate. And of course, like now our online campaigning and social media is mostly around the unequal access to vaccines and the divergent economic recovery that is splitting the world in two. Like the numbers, for example, are crazy. Now we have like 97 million people that have been pushed into poverty after the pandemic started. So of course we have moved into that. And how do we use social media to actually like achieve our objectives of like raising awareness and raising like funds and making governments actually like tackle this issue and trying to give us like a global response that we are really trying to work hard to get, and we are still like on the way, but hopefully will manage. And the idea is like we have a secret weapon. It's a bit like what Sebastian was mentioning about building community. We have a group of global activists. We have different programs that are targeted to each kind of different setting. We have programs in the US, in Canada, in Africa, and here in Europe. In Europe, they're called our youth ambassadors. And yeah, basically our secret weapon. They have been like advocating relentlessly for us, like targeting policymakers, like chasing them through Twitter, like LinkedIn, Instagram, like with videos, with messages, coming out with podcasts, with like a stance. Like as last year we couldn't meet, they were like even like developing virtual stands, you know, where they were pretending like different backgrounds to be in places, like to try to get the message across. So for us, like they're actually like we have been like working really hard. And I think also like Violeta Lefat, she mentioned a lot like the fact of like really accessible and simple language. And what we do with our program of like global activists is like we recruit them on a yearly basis. Like the recruitment will be open now for like the new cohort, like in November. And basically the idea is like we are all like bind together with what also Sebastian mentioned, like that is like the same values. Basically, we are looking for like we are looking for young people that are committed to the same values that we have as an organization. Of course, to end extreme poverty, now to work like something more urgently, to get like a global COVID response, to get like vaccines everywhere, and to try to make the recovery more equal. And we do this, and every year we train them with like different like advocacy workshops, like online trainings. And what is very interesting, and I think this also reflects a bit what Edu was saying, is that we are actually like having lots of input from them. It's not just like, of course, we are like an NGO and we have like our mission and our values, but our actions and the way like we shape our messages to make them like clear and targeted are really much also being shaped by the group of youth ambassadors that are always like influencing our brainstorming, our campaigns, coming up with like new innovative ideas that maybe we didn't actually have before on our own. And just to give you a quick example, because you were also discussing like the difference of like how do we do like with paid advertising, non-paid advertising, organic. And I would say for us, what has been proven really useful is like working partnerships. Like now our team in Africa has developed a partnership with UNICEF and the African Union and TikTok, basically to counter misinformation about vaccines. Because we realized, like in our target group, in young people, like in Africa, like this was like a big issue. Like after like all the delays in the deliveries, all the different vaccines that are reaching there, and here we are not actually like implementing, like this information was a big issue. And we developed this partnership with TikTok, and that has actually given us like lots of organic content. We have like already 500 organic videos, 2.4 million like views of those videos. So I would say for us, like we always try, of course, like you cannot like do without paid advertisement. That's also part of the deal. But also it's been like more and more difficult, especially when you advertise on social issues for NGOs, like with Facebook. It's been really complicated. Like now, for example, as in Brussels, if we want to advertise for other European countries, it's really tricky because you need to have like a person based in each country to be able to do that. So this type of partnerships, like more innovative, like we try to go and do with TikTok or with other channels, have been really, really proven very valuable for us. And I will leave the floor to others, but if you have any questions, do let me know.
Thank you. And the questions are coming because they will come in about 15 minutes, but we still have 15 minutes to ask. Do a quick final round. Sebastian, you were mentioning before some, again, tips and tricks and some tools on how how to use all the online platform. Especially, I would be curious because we mentioned it a couple of times, how the world of digital fundraising works. In particular, how an organization can expand, its followers, but not just the one who actually, follow you on social media, but really the one who engage with your organization, with your mission, and have an impactful digital fundraising, because this is, again, what's really helping a lot of NGOs to pivot and to scale up. It's really to have this online possibility to fundraise from all over the world. Can you share a bit of information or a bit of tricks on this?
Yes, of course. I mean, with digital fundraising involves the very ugly task of asking for money. I mean, no one likes to do that, right? And certainly there are people out there who are very good at fundraising in, in like I say, in this old versus new power. In the old power, you would simply fill a room with super wealthy people, give them a decent dinner, and then ask them to open their wallets and give you money for whichever cause. And that's fine. What is happening at the moment is that, of course, is especially if your target audience are the youth, then you won't have many wealthy young people able to work on that basis. What you really need is to convince them that and engage with them in a way that they feel that your cause is also their cause, and the way they can help is by giving some money. And of course, there are a lot of things to be said here. What I work with organizations to really get it right, because I think it's the key issue. It's of course the strategy, which is always important, but also the technology. On the strategy, I think we have already mentioned the key components. I think you have, in terms of, you have to, in terms of an organization, you have to build this digital ambassador or these digital ambassador programs, and you have to be very transparent and very passionate about the way you communicate and act. But then on the technology side, what I've seen really good causes coming to a crash is when they don't use the right tools to fundraise. And to think about the tools, if the people watching us today or our colleagues, maybe they've come across these challenges that in the end, getting people from where they are to giving money, it's a very long process. So you always need to look for the technology that allows you to have the smoothest of the transitions. It's sort of like the experience of Amazon. So Amazon has done good and bad things. One of the things that it's a pain in the ass for fundraisers is that Amazon has elevated the user experience when it comes to behaving online, and this one click, and then you get it. Everything gets paid, and they deliver it to your place. Is what young people also expect when they go and look for organizations to support. And so be very careful with that technology. The best cause, if they doesn't have the technology behind, will fail or will not achieve its objectives. I think that that it is super important, for example, that you bring to your fundraising or your membership team, you bring a lot of automation to the job. So I've seen a lot of organizations spending huge amount of time, someone chasing people because they didn't renew the yearly or the monthly payment, and it is because their credit card expired, which is it's fair enough. And then you have a lot of people dedicated in organizations to really try to get that money or try to get that donor to raise or to give more money. And nowadays you need to look for there are technology available that allows you to automate and also introduce some machine learning and artificial intelligence components in your fundraising workflow. And I've seen many examples. I would like to mention a few. So if you, and it's again, simplicity when it comes to fundraising is key. I am a big fan of an organization based in the UK, which is called Led by Donkeys. Okay, I don't know if you follow them, but they are great. And what they do is they have a clear purpose, which is to signal how incompetent the UK government is in handling Brexit and handling the health crisis, etc. And so what they do, they say, we need you to give us money so that we spend all that money in poster campaigns, billboards. They also projected in the House of Parliament like a big video criticizing Boris Johnson. So very innovative stuff, and that's what they do. They don't have, partners. They only have a website where you can actually donate money and donate money on a recurring basis, and then you see their work, and their work is like very cutting edge in terms of the techniques and the strategies they use is quite impressive. So I think um, uh, I think our organizations need that money if we are in the third sector, or we are charities, and even if we're in advocacy, like the one that I explained. I think we need to, and if our target audience are not those wealthy people in a ballroom, but actually young people playing on their iPhones, I think we have to be to make or to take very seriously the upcoming technology. So it's all about automation. It's all about user experience, about this one-click experience, and boom, you don't need to fill out the details once again, or you don't need to go to another page, and all that. Is like having this experience will allow you to really meet your objectives. Because, and the last thing that I will say on this is that many fundraisers that I speak to, I ask them, where are you spending, or on which tax are you spending most of your time? And they say, like, I want new members. We need to hit the target for new donors or new members for the organization, and oftentimes what they have is like they have a leak, and they are losing current donors and current members. And one of the things that I always try to say to them is like, you know, getting a new donor coming through the door is always more expensive than keeping an existing donor happy within your organization. So sometimes it's, I think the role of the fundraiser needs to involve really giving added value to their current donors and members, trying to leverage and to really milk that cow, instead of trying to think about sometimes unrealistic targets that really stretch everyone in the organization, and in the end, every new person that comes in, it costs 3 times as much as reaching out to someone who is already giving money and asking for a little bit more, for example.
Thank you, Sebastian. Two more questions before we open to the public one. One is for Edu. As we said before, you're also part of the National Youth Council of Spain. So let's go down to what's happening at local level, not just international expansion, which is very important, but also then there is a local level, which is the day-by-day life of people. And through the National Youth Council, you channel proposals to the government in Spain, or to the different level of the government. And to do this job, how do online platform helped you in the last years to actually improve the work you're doing, to be in contact with all the member organization, to reach out to new one? Can you tell us a bit about how you used the new tools to actually improve a job that probably was also happening 20 years ago, when there was nothing of all this internet happening and online platform happening?
Okay, thanks, Andrea, for the question. There, to start, I'll also go back to what Sebastian was saying. He was talking about money. So I think everywhere money, sometimes it's important. So here it's also like the same. Youth organizations, especially when we grow like grassroots level or national level, we don't have budget. Like, we are not big companies, we are not big institutions. So we most of the times cannot afford to send participants to events, to pay for logistics and so on. So that's why most of the times we weren't invited, or we were invited but we couldn't attend. now with the digital platforms and so on, we've seen that it's much easier for us to access some decision making spaces and to get to some meetings. Even, let's say, for example, this one, if this would have been in Berlin in person, I wouldn't be able to be there. But now, as it's online, I'm able to attend and speak for young people here. So that's something we've seen. Even, for example, it was like a funny thing last year with the pandemic. We were able to even have like a meeting with the King of Spain, because it was like, okay, it's online, so we can give you 30 minutes, it's fine. So like this kind of things, like these meetings, you will never imagine in person, because they require a lot of logistics and money. Then we are able to do it. So that's why sometimes our impact has grown there. Also, we have like this kind of weird audience and target for like youth organizations like ours, because we do represent young people in the public institutions and bodies, but we also speak with and for young people. So we are not like this company or this institution that's main target it's young people, and this has like this language, like this common language. Or we are not young people trying to just impact the government. We have like something in between, like this kind of bridge figure when we speak about social media. Like when we post something, we want to target both a decision maker and a young person. So it's kind of complicated, let's say. But what we've seen, it works best for us, it's to make social media for youth by youth. Like we've grown with social media and with digital platforms, and therefore we are there like in the middle of it. And it's such a fast world. Like the trends of today are not the trends of tomorrow. Like literally what's on Twitter today won't be on Twitter or Instagram or TikTok or whatever tomorrow. Like it changes so fast. So we've had like this lack of sometimes appropriate timing when we were talking about social media. Like we were seeing like some institutions, for example, or companies like preparing some campaigns that were targeting like a trend that was already like some months old. So in the end, it was kind of updated. So we're trying to get inside these fast lanes or of moving things, and preparing maybe shorter campaigns with more concrete and simple ideas that just go to the point and they click into a trend, so they get like kind of viral there. So that's something we're also doing. And yeah, trying to speak these both institutions and young people language. To give an example here, we, for example, prepared a campaign that it was like this, the cover of the IKEA catalog, but it was called Idea. So it was like a housing campaign, and then we were speaking about how young people are like really happy in the cover, and then the messages were like really sad, like only 1 out of 10 young people in Spain is able to emancipate and leave their parents' house, blah, blah. So that's like something young people and institutions or decision makers can relate, like this kind of this IKEA let's go for shopping thing. So for example, find some common term. It's sometimes complicated for us, but it pays off. So that's it.
And when you do such campaign, you assign a budget. Again, the endless debate, organic against advertised or paid growth, etc., etc. And then you said, you have problems in targeting, because sometimes you have to target young people or the decision makers, which live in probably a completely different world. But that's also why several organizations help to bridge this. But do you have this possibility to actually assign a budget to then target your constituency or eventually decision makers, or how do you actually then make this practical? Now, if there is someone home now watching us, would you have a couple of advice on that?
Yeah, as you said, it's pretty impossible to reach at the same time with the same kind of language and impact institutions and young people. So we usually, what we try to do is like with this kind of let's cover all thing. Like we prepare like I don't know, like a campaign. So then we go like kind of more of a young people's language thing with a post, and then we do another post with another thing more directed to institutions. Like we try to, when we think about that, is like more broad. Let's say we prepared what was called Hubevac, which was like a vaccine. So we were asking politicians, like we asked the prime minister and ministers and blah, 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 even then going down to the grassroots level to vaccinate for youth rights. Okay, so it's like a simple idea. You get this vaccine trend now, and you apply it to a social media campaign, which is vaccinate for youth people's rights. So for institutions, we prepared like this kind of document, like this alliance declaration with the text, and then they sign it, and then you have this picture of people signing the document, which is really like institution thing. And then we had for young people this kind of video media thing, which was like the side effects of the vaccine, and then you were like touching the emotion of you cannot work, you cannot leave your house, you cannot blah, blah, blah. So then you have like this kind of double target thing, and then it worked for us. So I'm not sure if that was answering to your question, Andrea, but okay.
Yeah, I think it's practical example. I think is what then helped people at home to maybe get even more ideas, and again to people at home and let's say a more and more personalized experience. That's the last question, and then we open it to the to the public. Marcin, we would like to ask to know your views on the personalized experience online. You use online tools, use several of them as key part of your work. Do you think it's important to have personalized experience when you're online? And if yes, how do you make this personalization possible in your daily base?
Thank you so much for this question, because in my opinion, this is one of the most important issues when it comes to technology, social platforms, and politics, because well, many good things were said here about technology and new ways of communication, and no wonder humankind is based on communication. Our culture is based on communication. So if we can transcend the time and space with our way of communicating, this is something amazing. However, let's not pretend that this new space of communication does not have, the dark side of the force. And because it also has, in my opinion, we all know how the social media works. The platforms needs our time. They fight for our engagement and on our time, yeah. And how do they achieve this goal? By showing us the things that we like to see. If you like dogs, not cats, Facebook will show you dogs, not cats. If you want food, not sports, Facebook or any other platform will show you food, not sports. And in politics, this is extremely dangerous, in my opinion, because you cannot see the information, views, analysis, only the things that you want to see, like to see. You cannot engage only with the political content that suits your worldview, because this is how the democratic society will fracture. You need to engage with people with different views. So you need to be outside of this political bubble, and it's really easy to get into political bubble on social media, and it's easy to get radicalized within such a bubble. So if I were to give one advice to young, old, any people that engage with political content on social media, do not get stuck in a political bubble. Engage with people with other views, watch some content creators that you do not agree with, challenge your mind, because it's really important that we in democracy can respect and can understand each other, even if we do not agree with our views. So I think that this personalized content for every user of internet when it comes to politics can be really polarizing and can be really, really dangerous for democracy.
Thank you, Marcin, also for touching on these points, which are extremely important. And now, if the team who's helping us in the background of the conversation can pop up the first questions from the crowd, and then depending on the question, if it's addressed to someone, this person will probably reply, and if it's not, I would take the authority on addressing the question. So we have Evelyn this comes from YouTube. With so many campaigns, issues, and movements being built online, what are some of the best ways and best practices to stand out in the crowd? Guadalupe, or I mean, if there is anyone who has some absolutely, if I can ask you to be very short so we can take as many as possible. But Guadalupe, do you have some best practices to stand out in the crowd? And among this, also again, the paper we're going to publish in a few weeks, I think, is going to help. But please.
Yes, I'm happy to give you an example of what we did in May 2020. With the start of the pandemic, we were realizing that basically there were lots of like celebrities posts that they were trying to be like play with solidarity, that they were really not appealing to the audiences, and they were like really criticized. And we were seeing at the same time there was so much misinformation online, like massive, like said, like that was a problem. Like it's still the problem nowadays, all the misinformation. But then like nobody knew like basically what to trust, what sources, and you had like all these celebrities coming out online using their social media and saying whatever, sometimes like fundamented, sometimes not. So we thought like we had an idea, as we had partnered with some celebrities before in the past in different markets that we're working on, to actually ask them to give over their social media accounts to experts. So basically we tried to like pair different celebrities that they were giving like their Instagram account to, like, for example, our US team managed to get like Julia Roberts to give up their like Instagram account to Dr. Fauci, to actually come out and say, okay, this is what's happening. This is what you need to do. This is like the reality. These are the numbers. And for us, that really worked quite well, because it wasn't us saying, like, this is like why we need a global response. This is what you need to like put vaccines, like, and try to like get that finance. This is like lockdown, what you need to do. It wasn't us, because we weren't like experts or authorities in the topic. It wasn't also like the celebrities. It was like actually the experts that had that platform of like millions of viewers that wouldn't have the access before and wouldn't have the familiarity. So for us, that campaign, we call it Pass the Mic, worked really well at the time. And I think it was a good way to counterfact all the misinformation that was happening online and reach like a really wide audience.
Thank you. Next one. So we try to take as many as possible. Noemi Carrara, the COVID-19, again on YouTube, the COVID-19 pandemic has meant almost all aspects of our lives have shifted online. How can we make sure that those who are less active online or have a lack of digital skills do not miss or out on campaigns and issue awareness movement? Edu, you were mentioning a bit of how you guys reach out to less, let's say, people who live in rural areas, if I can say that. It's not just that, it's literally people who have lack of digital skills. So it doesn't mean they live in rural areas, but somehow people are a bit outside of a general crowd. And again, we spoke about before about organic or paid ad and targeting, etc. But how do we reply to Noemi? How do we make sure that those who are less active online or have a lack of digital skills do not miss out on awareness?
Okay, thanks, Noemi, for the question. Here, my opinion is that we should always try to go back to the basics all the time. Like when we organize an in-person event, we have a lot of things to take into account. But then when we are organizing a media campaign, sometimes we think it's really easy. If you organize like a conference or an in-person meeting, then you need a lot of logistics and therefore also a lot of budget. So here, when we are speaking about media, it's not just about advertising, it's also about making it accessible. So if you want to make it accessible and reach those people that are less active online, then you need to translate things. Again, as we said, use subtitles, and also even organize like this kind of let's do it together thing. Like, for example, I can imagine like some grassroots organizations we have were organizing in in their school centers, like this kind of let's get together and then we'll post together, or we'll like then use a projector and see things there, and then we'll try to learn. I mean, for young people it's easier because most of the times we do have digital skills, so it's something easier to overcome. But then if we want to engage people, we need to train and empower people. That's also because with the 25%, we were trying to try this training thing, like how to take your idea to the big one. So again, it's invest. If you want people to participate in your campaigns, you need to invest in those people to be able to participate, reach for their needs, and then identify what they are lacking for not participating, and then try to fix it.
Thank you. Next one, we still take 4 or 5 minutes. Irene, for effective fundraising activity, is a personalized online experience the most cost-effective way to reach those most interested in contributing to a cause or issue? So make sure that fundraising works well. Probably, Stefan, if you want to take this.
Sebastian, you meant?
Yeah, sorry.
I go. Yeah.
After 1 hour and 10 minutes, Sebastian, yes.
Okay. Short answer is yes. I mean, I think, but I want to go further. It's also important to have simplicity. I mentioned the example of led by donkeys. They have the simplest thing you can ever imagine, and it's just give us money so that we keep kicking on this on the Conservative Party and many others as and really there is no personalized online experience. Just go and donate some money. What I think is important when making sure that you are trying, when you are fundraising is like I say, it's a test and it's a test exercise. So it's very difficult to know upfront what's gonna work and what that personalized experience is like. So I think it's this trial and error approach is if you're able in the team and also the leadership of the organization is able to really buy into this, I think it's the best approach, because now we see charities and organizations trying to be literally everywhere and say, oh, we have to be on Clubhouse and we have to be on TikTok and Facebook, etc. And they are like a little bit over the place because they really want to reach everyone. And sometimes, like I've said in the past, it's being simple is always, simplicity is always a value. When it comes to fundraising, people need to understand, right up front why they are giving giving money, and also if you engage in more personalized, I understand personalized as more like targeted communication, etc. Then build proper trial and error systems and learn by doing. Whichever in the case of fundraising, it's pretty clear. No, whichever approach is giving you a better return, you cancel the others, you put more money onto the one that is working, and then you make it a system. And everyone in the organization understands that you won't do it right for every single in every single platform, but at least you're trying to learn from it, and that is what will lead you to success clearly.
Thank you. Last one, and then for equal opportunities it goes to Marcin, so that's each one has one. Michelle, while reaching out to people who are already interested in a topic, issue, or idea, is a good strategy to build a following. How can campaigns better reach those who are less likely to be engaged? Now, this is a difficult one.
This is a difficult one yet, but I'll try my best. So I think it's the very important thing is what Edu said. It's to build your content into a broad context of what is trending. and this is how you can engage with people who might not be interested in this topic, but are interested in the general trend. So use the platforms and means on the platforms that are effective in that period of time, and maybe that will lead the whole methods of reaching for other people will lead other people to engage with your campaign. That's how I would that's my best bet to get the trends, online trends on online platforms and use them.
Thank you very much.
Please. If I may, super quickly to
Yes.
Michelle, I think you said that you already have the people interested, and just apply the simple rule of marketing, which the most effective method is the word of mouth. Use your current people to to bring those who can be less engaged. Why? Because those who are less engaged, they will be more likely to follow the advice of a friend, like we do when we go shopping, for example. And it is very likely that the people who follow you has people, who might potentially join your cause. So really use the people you already got to bring, you can do it through an affiliated program, like you can do some gamification exercises. So you can say, if you bring X number of people to the organizations before the end of the week, then you offer something, some goodies, or I don't know what your organization is about, but something that makes sense, that is in line with your organization values and objectives. And my experience doing this type of things is that in the end, around 1/3 of you should expect that around 1/3 of your people had been brought to the organization thanks to those who were already inside. So I think in terms of numbers is quite an interesting approach, and it works. Has to be done right, but give it a go and let us know how it goes.
Thank you very much. And first of all, let me thank you all for your attendance and for being here. People who watched us. There are clearly way more things we wanted to ask you guys, but conscious of everyone's time, we finish it here. There will be a video of this live later on our social media for the one who just saw a part and they want to watch it all. There will also be some extract that we can share on the different platforms, and as I said, there will also be a paper that we will publish soon that might help many organizations in getting ideas from case studies on how different NGOs use the online platforms to grow their constituency and to grow their impact. For what it comes to myself, thank you very much to all the speaker for the time, to giving the time and the patience to attend our webinar. And we continue with our series of webinar. As you know, at Think Young, we have another one, basically one a week almost now, and things are growing, and there will be more. But also thanks to all the online platform that allow us to do this. So thank you very, very much, guys, for your time, and see you shortly.